So I am a native of Washington State. I'm a Spokane girl, born and raised. But recently, prior to joining the Civil Rights Unit, I had been back in DC working on civil rights issues for the US Department of Justice and the Civil Rights Division there. But hearing about the creation of this unit was sort of a magnet to draw me home, because being able to do this work in Washington and on behalf of Washingtonians is really sort of the biggest privilege that one can have as a lawyer, I think. And so I also wanted to say just a couple words more about the two people on my team so that you can get to know them and reach out to them if you want to work together and with us. So I'm going to introduce them in the order in which they agreed to work with me. So this is Shimi Woods, and she does all of our sort of administrative and legal support resource work, but she also does a ton of investigative work and case development. She's likely to be the first person that you could talk to if you call the Civil Rights Unit to talk with us. And she wears a number of hats, which requires her to have a very impressive background, which she does. She is an Army vet. She has a BA and a master's degree already, and in December is going to have another master's degree in investigative criminology. Did I get that right? From Seattle University, so she's not bored often. Marcia Chen. And Marcia Chen joined us from the Legal Aid Society Employment Law Center in San Francisco, which some of you are nodding, so you know that it has a reputation for doing really strong work on behalf of low-wage and vulnerable workers. Marcia works specifically on employment discrimination cases involving national origin discrimination. So she comes to us with a strong background protecting everybody in the workplace. No matter who you are, you have a right to be treated fairly at work. So Marcia's going to help us do some of our legal and enforcement work. So I just wanted to take 2 minutes and tell you 3 things about the work that I propose and that we're planning for the Civil Rights Unit to do. So one is to help enforce the Washington law against discrimination in this state. As many of you know, that law was passed in 1949, the first parts of it in Washington, and that is notable, that is remarkable, that in Washington State we've been prioritizing equality and making it part of public policy close to 20 years before those successes occurred at the federal level in the Civil Rights Acts of 1964 and 1968. So we've been looking towards equality and inclusion since the late 40s in this state. And Washington law protects us in employment and in housing, in credit and insurance transactions, and in places of public accommodation like government offices, schools, and businesses that are open to the public. And we do it on a broader scale than federal law provides or protects. So, like federal law, discrimination in Washington is illegal on the basis of race and color, national origin and religion, sex and disability, age in the employment context, and status as a family with kids in the housing context. But we do more. So we also prohibit discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation, which includes gender identity and gender expression. We prohibit discrimination against our service members and honorably discharged vets. We don't allow marital status discrimination, and we have a broader and more inclusive definition of disability in this state than is protected at the federal level. So more things to be proud of. That said, we know from current events that there's a tremendous amount of work to be done to keep working on issues of equality and inclusion, making sure that everyone is treated fairly in Washington. And so we're happy to sort of lend our hands and pitch in ways we can to help do that work. And so that's the first thing, enforcing the law against discrimination. The second is outreach. I want to talk to you and listen to you. I know that the members of my team do too, in order to understand from our community partners, our advocacy groups, legal and sort of political leaders, elected leaders, and just our neighbors, what are the issues that we should be thinking about and working towards? And we look forward to meeting those of you that we haven't already met to talk about that. And then the third thing is to be a community resource. So as sort of lawyers and administrators in state office, we want to provide resources to folks to better understand what their rights are and to know where they can go if they feel like they've had a discrimination issue or may have a civil rights problem. And I think Bob's going to talk a little bit more about that, but one of the things that the office has been doing is putting together a resource guide that's going to maybe help provide some resources in the way of self-advocacy. So those are 3 things we're working on, and before I sort of turn it back over to Bob, I just want to say quickly again how nice it is to see you here. And you know, there's a lot of people in this room who we're very aware have dedicated their entire career to working on issues of equality and inclusion in the state. And so part of what we're here to do today is to thank you for that, and to say that we want you to please keep in close touch with us, and let us know if there are ways that you see that we can work together and collaborate to make Washington a more fair place to work and to live and to go to school and to play.